study section 6, Metaphysics of Baruch de Spinoza. Introduction. According to Bertrand Russell, the metaphysical system of Spinoza is of the type inaugurated by Parmenides. There is only one substance, God or nature. Nothing finite is self-subsistent. Put differently, Spinoza's metaphysics is a monism expressed in pantheism. This is so because for Spinoza reality is one, and form and matter are aspects of the same reality, although he did not elucidate on the meaning of aspect. Furthermore, he speculates that God is in everything and everything is in God, using nature and God interchangeably. He therefore presents a metaphysics that is a rough mixture of idealism and materialism. In this study section, you will learn about the central argument of Spinoza's metaphysics. You will also learn concerning the distinctively pantheist character of his idealist monism. You will be expected to draw a parallel between Spinoza's monism and some other metaphysical dualisms. Learning outcomes for study section 6. When you have studied this section, you should be able to discuss the metaphysics of Baruch de Spinoza, explain substance monism. Metaphysics of Baruch de Spinoza. Baruch, or in Latin, Benedict de Spinoza, 1632 to 1677, was one of the most important rationalist philosophers in the early modern period, along with René Descartes, Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz, and Nicolas Malebranche. Spinoza was also the most influential atheist in Europe during this period. Atheist at the time means someone who rejects the traditional biblical views concerning God and his relation to nature. In his most important book, titled Ethics Demonstrated in a Geometrical Manner, Spinoza argues for a radically new picture of the universe to rival the traditional Judeo-Christian one. Using a geometrical method similar to Euclid's element and later Newton's Principia, he argues that there is no transcendent and personal God, no immortal soul, no free will, and that the universe exists without any ultimate purpose or goal. Instead, Spinoza argues the whole of the natural world, including human beings, follows one and the same set of natural laws, so humans are not special, that everything that happens could not have happened differently, that the universe is one inherently active totality which can be conceived of as either God or nature, and that the mind and the body are one and the same thing conceived in two ways. According to Spinoza, everything that exists is either a substance or a mode. A substance is something that needs nothing else in order to exist or be conceived. Substances are independent entities, both conceptually and ontologically. A mode or property is something that needs a substance in order to exist and cannot exist without a substance. For example, being fury, orange, hungry, and so on are modes that need a substance which is fury, orange, hungry, and so on. Hunger and patches of orange color cannot exist floating around on their own. Rather, hunger and patches of orange color need something, namely a substance, to be hungry and have the orange color. Hunger and colors are therefore dependent entities or modes. For most of Spinoza's predecessors, including Aristotle and Descartes, there are lots of substances in the universe, each with their own modes or properties. For example, according to Descartes, a cat is a substance which has the modes or properties of being fiery, orange, soft, and so on. Who was an atheist in Spinach time? Someone who rejected the traditional biblical views concerning God and his relation to nature. Spinoza, however, rejects this traditional view and argues instead that there is only one substance called God or nature. Cats, dogs, people, rocks, and so on are not substances in Spinoza's view, but rather cats, dogs, people, rocks, and so on are just modes or properties of one substance. This one substance is simply people-like in places, rock-like in other places, chair-like in still other places. One can think of substance as an infinite space. Some regions of this one space are hard and brown, rocks in bracket. Other regions of space are green, juicy, and soft, plants in bracket, while still other regions are fiery, orange, and soft, cats in bracket. As a cat walks across the room, all that happens in Spinoza's view is that different regions of space become successively fiery, orange, and soft. This one substance has an infinite number of attributes. An attribute is simply an essence, a what it is to be that kind of thing. According to Descartes, every substance has only one attribute. Bodies have only the attribute of extension, and minds have only the attribute of thought. Spinoza, however, argues against this claim that the one substance is absolutely infinite, and so it must exist in every way that something can exist. Thus, he infers that the one substance must have an infinite number of attributes. An attribute, according to Spinoza, is just the essence of substance under some way of conceiving of describing this substance. When you consider substance one way, then you conceive of its essence as extension. When you consider substance another way, then you conceive of its essence as thought. While substance has an infinite number of different attributes, Spinoza argues that human beings only know about two of them, extension and thought. How many attributes does a substance have? 1. Substance monism. The most distinctive aspect of Spinoza's system is his substance monism, that is, his claim that one infinite substance, God or nature, is the only substance that exists. His argument for this monism is his first argument in part 1 of the Ethics. The basic structure of the argument is that since every substance has at least one attribute, and that two substances cannot share the same nature or attribute, for God alone has all possible attributes. Therefore, no other substance other than God can exist. That is, there is only one substance called God or nature, which has all possible attributes. No other substance can exist because if it existed, it would have to share an attribute with God, but it is impossible for two different substances to both have the same attribute. Spinoza defends each of his assumptions by noting that if a substance existed which did not have any attributes, then, by Spinoza's definition of attribute, the substance would not have an essence. However, according to Spinoza, it makes no sense to claim that something exists which does not have an essence. Thus, every substance has at least one attribute. This premise is not particularly controversial. Spinoza's argument for the position that two substances cannot share the same nature or attribute is considered to be much more controversial. Example of substance. Here Spinoza argues that if two substances share one and the same attribute, then there is no way to tell the two substances apart. If substance A and substance B both have the same attribute as their nature, then in virtue of which are there two different substances in such a case, why are they not just one substance? Since no cause can be given to explain their distinctness, Spinoza infers that they must actually be the same. As regards a substance with infinite attributes, Spinoza explicitly provides a number of different proofs for its existence. One proof is a version of the ontological argument also used by Anselm and Descartes. Spinoza's argument is interesting, however, because it provides a very different reason for claiming that the essence of each substance includes existence. Spinoza's ontological argument, once unpacked, in noting that it begins by stating when two things have nothing in common, one cannot be the cause of the other. Since it is impossible for two substances to have the same attribute or essence, and that two substances with different attributes have nothing in common, it can be inferred that one substance cannot cause another substance to exist. Either substances are caused to exist by other substances, or they exist by their own nature. Thus, substances must exist by their own nature, that is, the essence of a substance must involve existence. This argument differs from the ontological argument offered by Anselm and Descartes in that 1. Spinoza does not infer the existence of God from the claim that our idea of God involves existence, and 2. Spinoza does not assume that existence is a perfection and so a property. Spinoza's argument, therefore, can avoid some of the more common objections to the ontological proofs as formulated by Descartes and Anselm. Spinoza's argument for substance monism is generally deemed a failure by contemporary philosophers. The most common way that has been employed to reject Spinoza's argument for substance monism is to reject his assertion that two substances cannot share the same nature or attribute. One of the most popular arguments against this premise was first presented by Leibniz. Leibniz argued that whereby it might be impossible for two substances to have all of their attributes in common, because then they would be indistinguishable. It may be possible for two substances to share an attribute and yet differ by each having another attribute that is not shared. For example, one substance may have attributes A and B, and another substance has attributes A and C. The two substances would be distinguishable because each has an attribute the other lacks, but both substances would nevertheless share an attribute. Though this argument of Leibniz appears persuasive, it is not recorded that Spinoza responded to this objection, probably because Spinoza in bracket did not find it persuasive enough. You can conclude this lecture by presenting the query that Spinoza did not give a conceptual analysis of what he meant by aspect, and he also did not make the necessary distinction between nature and God as one substance, especially in referring to them interchangeably. Summary of Study Section 6. In Study Section 6, you have learned that 1. The metaphysical temperament of Spinoza's philosophy. The lecture examined the pantheistic monism of Spinoza, identified his conception of substance and the world as aspect or attribute of this substance. This substance he referred to nature or God, of which every other thing is an extension. 2. The lecture, however, concludes with his critique of a major aspect of Spinoza's metaphysics. This has to do with not providing adequate explication for the idea of aspect or extensionality. This is the end of Study Section 6. Thanks for listening.